Today is the day that I know you've all been waiting for. Do you know what it is? Do you know what we're going to do? Let me give you a hint. We have pine resin. We have beeswax. And we have jojoba oil. 3 ingredients. And we also have fabric that we've cut into different squares with our pinking shears. We have a mason jar and we have a paintbrush. Oh, we also have a makeshift clothesline and some clothespins. We have 2 baking sheets with parchment paper, and we have a pot on the stove with water. So, any guesses? Okay. We are making the food wraps today. The beeswax food wraps. So instead of your Ziploc baggies or whatever you like, if you've seen any of my previous videos or even my live with Jamie a while back, I introduced these food wraps. I'll show you a little bit close up. Let me see if I can. There we go. Brighten it a little bit. So I made these a while back for gifts, and there's just 3 different ones in here, 3 different fabrics. I went to Hobby Lobby and I got a bunch of different cotton. Some of these came in like packs of different, pre-packs of different, what am I trying to say? Designs. So you could just get a yard of whatever you like, whatever design. I have some of this honeybee pattern that I'm going to be using today. Yeah, so I'm excited to show you how to do this, and got my recipe book here, my spiral that I have all of my notes in, so I'll walk you through that. But first step is to go ahead and get a pot of water boiling, because we're going to need to melt down our beeswax, our pine resin, and our oil, jojoba oil. And we're going to combine that all together. I went ahead and started my oven to preheat at 350. You may not need to preheat it so quickly, because melting down I have my jar from last time that I used. I'm going to just try to remelt or reheat this from what's left over in here and use it again. But word of caution with this is that you want to make sure that the clothes that you're wearing are clothes that you don't mind getting dirty. Pine resin, once it's in something, is almost impossible to get it out of anything. If you get it on your countertops or your floors, peanut butter can get it off pretty. There's something about peanut butter and the oils with the pine resin that helps get the resin off. But if it's in your clothes, that's going to be a different story to get that out. So you're going to want to use a jar that you're not going to need again. So I'm going to use this jar that I've used in the past. You can see it's got residual left over. So I'm going to add my ingredients to this jar, and then I'm going to put it in my simmering. I'm going to set this down in my simmering pot of water and let it all incorporate. It may take about 30 minutes, depending on how large of chunks of your ingredients you have. You just need to go and stir it every so often. You may notice that the resin is going to form kind of like a sticky ball in the middle. Just keep on at it until it's all incorporated, until it's all a liquid combined together. So let's get that started now. I'm not concerned right now with using these types of bowls with my resin, because it's in pellet form, so it's not melted down. It's not going to stick to anything. There's a very large chunk. I'm going to take that out. So I'm just going to do Okay, so as far as ingredients go, depending on the kind of resin you get, so this one's almost like a pellet form. Dropping it. Like a little crystallized pellet. Some of them are powdered. Some of them come in huge chunks, like this was in my bag. So measurements are going to be a little tricky. This I'm just weighing out in grams. This is 20 grams. So if you have a scale, you can use that. I'm going to do 20 grams of this resin to 2 tablespoons of the oil, and then about 2.5 to 3 ounces of beeswax. So just, you can play around with the consistency. I'll probably just do 2.5 for now of the beeswax. I'm going to add this into my mason jar. This is 20 grams. Let's see. I want 2.5 ounces beeswax. So I'm just breaking off chunks of my beeswax that I have for my bees to make 2.5 ounces. There we go. 2.5 ounces of beeswax is going in my mason jar here with my resin. You can grate that finely, or if you've got the little pellets, that works too. And then I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of my jojoba oil. This oil has a lot of good cosmetic properties as well. Okay, 2 tablespoons of the oil. Okay, our water is boiling, so I'm going to put this in my pot to let this all incorporate and come together, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, I've got my ingredients inside my mason jar, and I've got a boil going on the outside of it. And I'm just going to check this about every 5 minutes or so, stir it. It may take about 30 minutes for it all to incorporate together, or longer, depending on how large of chunks your ingredients are. It may take a little bit longer to melt. And then over here, I went ahead and lined 2 cookie sheets with parchment paper, because once this is all melted, we are going to put our fabric down on the cookie sheets, and we're going to use a paintbrush. I have this old one that I used before, so I'm hoping that it'll melt, it'll work again. We're going to paint this solution on our fabric. We're going to pop it in a 350-degree oven for 3 minutes. We're going to take it out, flip it over, paint any dry spots we see, and then pop it in for 3 minutes. Take it out, and we're going to hang it up to dry. So I'll show you those next steps. In the meantime, while your ingredients are boiling in your double boiler, you can go ahead and start cutting up the fabric in the shapes that you would like. So I just had some leftover fabric, and you really don't need any specific type of shape. You could do circles, you could do rectangles, you could do squares. I just suggest that whatever shape that you do cut them into, they fit flat on your baking sheet. You don't want any overhang. You don't want anything to have to be kind of folded on top of one another to fit. So just make sure whatever size you do will fit on the baking sheet flat so that it can fully set in the oven. I use pinking shears too, just because it helps it not to fray the edges. A little bit of an update. We've been at this for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes now, and everything's pretty much melted except for the beeswax. So if you want it to melt quicker, I'd suggest maybe grating it or chopping it into smaller bits. But right now we're just kind of, my paintbrush is going to be able to work again, so that's good. We got all that melted off. So yeah, I'm just waiting on the beeswax now to melt down. So I got a little skewer here, and I want to just show you, do you see this blob, this like brown blob? That's normal. This is the resin. It's like congealed together inside, and you just want to continue to stir all of this until it all melts into one. So you know that it's not ready yet if you still see this large sticky mass, because that is the resin, and it is basically fighting, incorporating with everyone else. So we're just going to continue to kind of mix this around until it's all melted together. So don't worry if you see this, this is normal. Let me show you my other setup while the resin is incorporating. I just took 2 of my chairs and I tied some string to each side, and I put a little paper towel down below because we are going to, once they're out of the oven, we're going to hang these by a corner and let them dry and harden for about, they're probably good after about 5 minutes, but I wouldn't package them up. I would let them sit out for at least 20 minutes, but you could take them off of the clips after about 5. You'll get into a rotation, so once you pop in some for 3 minutes, flip them over, put them in on the other side for 3 minutes. The ones that you have out here you could take them off and set them on your table, on like some parchment paper on your table to let them continue to just cool off while your next set dries. So that's just kind of the rotation that you'll get into. I went ahead and just got these ready. I've got my 2 baking sheets with my fabric ready to be painted. So as soon as this is done boiling, we will get to it. All right, this is not the best angle of me, but I want you to be able to see what I do with this fabric and how I paint everything on with the paintbrush. So right now, I'm going to keep this mason jar simmering in this pot. I'm going to try to show you without dropping my phone into it. Here. It's all incorporated. It's all melted together. And your house might start to smell a little bit like a pine tree. You might not notice it, but anybody who walks in, like your kids, will probably be like, what does that smell? So I'm going to turn this low and just keep it warm, because if you take it off of the heat, it's going to start to set up and solidify, and then you're going to be stuck with kind of a mess trying to get it to remelt, and you don't want that. Probably going to be going through a lot of paper towels as well. I had my paintbrush sitting out, so I'm going to just get this paintbrush reheated. Probably be easier too if you had a smaller mason jar. But I had this one already, so we're going to go with it. Another thing that you're going to notice is that your fabric may start to bleed the colors together. There's nothing you really can do about that. It is what it is. It's just kind of the interaction with the oils and the resin and everything. It may I need a lint roller on this one. Okay. So I'm going to kind of get this a little close, and you're just going to take your paintbrush and start to paint. What you might also want to do is you can pick this up with a oven safe mitt, and you can pour some of it on there. It depends on how big your fabric is, because sometimes like doing it this way takes a long time. So can you see how it's coming along? You just want to paint the whole thing to where it's got this, where you can tell it's got a liquid texture to it. And don't worry if it starts to dry on the fabric, it will melt again in the oven. You just want to make sure that you are covering it well. Let me get saturating the whole thing. This is kind of a messy craft, but it's a rewarding craft. And it sets up fast. Fast, fast, fast. Just like to make sure I get the edges. Okay, so I have painted this one completely, and it's got some wax that has already hardened on it. When I put it in the oven, it will remelt it and kind of get all within the fabric, and then we are going to turn it over with some tongs or your fingers if your fingers are calloused. Just be careful because it's going to be hot. And then we're going to paint the other side and pop it in the oven for 3 minutes again, and then we're going to go hang them up on our little string over there. But I'm going to do 2 at a time. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to do the other one real quick. And how many, and I know you guys are going to ask me, how many beeswax wraps is this recipe going to make? And that is completely and entirely up to how large of a wrap that how large of the material is that you cut. If you make really large wraps, then your resin is not going to go very far. If you make smaller wraps, then you'll be able to get more out of it. So you can double the amount of material, you can double the amount of oils to resin and beeswax. If you think that you're going to be making a lot of them, you can just double it. And then, or if you just find that you're running low of your resin material or your wax, then you can just make another batch of it after you've ran out of everything that you've used your first go round, if you have like material left over. I'm going to pop these in the oven now. You can kind of tell they're waxy and sticky on the top. going to set it for 3 minutes. So we took this out of the oven, and what we're looking for is dry spots. Let me get the other one. So normally you're going to see dry spots towards the edges. This one's already starting to harden. Hold on. Sorry, guys. You just want to flip it over. And look for any spots that look dry or that need to add a little bit more. This looks a little bit dry right here in the center. And I'm going to add a little bit more wax to this. And then we are going to pop this back in the oven for 3 minutes. Let the oils redistribute on the other side of the wrap. And then we're going to hang them up to dry. Okay, so I'm now going to take this off and let it dry on the rack. It is going to be dripping, so just be careful. And like I said, you may need to do a little bit of a cleanup job. If you notice that after you take these out that they are still dry in some areas, you can just recoat them in the dry areas and pop them back in the oven for a minute or two. This one's very wet. And just by the time that you're done with your next batch, these can come off. These will be dry enough that you can set them on some parchment paper on your table. And see, this one's already pretty dry. So I'm going to get started on my second round now. Kind of a long, skinny one. And if you can, I recommend doing this like around winter time, because opening and shutting your oven so much kind of lets a lot of heat in the house. Just remember, try to work fast so you can kind of spread this out as much as possible, concentrating on the edges. Three minutes. So these are already cooled and dried. So in preparation of my next one, I'm just going to take these off of the line. I'm just going to set them over here on a piece of parchment paper. Hard to do with one hand. Oh my goodness. And the consistency is sticky. It's got beeswax in it. It has resin in it. It will mold and shape now to whatever you form it to. And I will tell you that the heat of your hand, if you form it around, I got wax on me, sorry. If you form it around an apple or whatever it is, a cup, a Tupperware dish, the heat of it will help mold it to whatever it is that you're trying to cover. Or it'll just stick to itself really easily. So you can wash these with a mild detergent like Dawn dish soap. You can wash them over and over and over again, and they will continue to hold their form and their shape. So that's what I love about these, is that they are eco-friendly. You can reuse them. They're reusable. Eventually they will lose their sticky, so they won't last forever, but they will last a very long time. And then you can just fold them up real cute. You could tie a ribbon around them. You could do what I did, make a little sticker for them. I'm sure we'll sell these at the farmer's market and have these for sale eventually. But yeah, so I mean, I made these years ago. I gave them out as Christmas gifts, and they keep really well. So that is how you make beeswax wraps, and then you just kind of have an assembly line, and there's my next batch. You just go, go, go. I feel like this goes without saying, but just in case, make sure you don't pour any of that down your sink. It will clog anything that it goes down or touches your pipes. So if you've got leftover beeswax resin mixture, don't pour it down your sink. Just leave it in your mason jar and you can reheat it. That's what I did. I had like an inch or so left over from last time, and I just added my ingredients to the jar and melted it all together, and I was able to use it again. So or you can just dump it in a something that won't melt your trash bag, but dump it in something that you can put into the trash. Just don't put it down your sink. That would not be good. I don't know if you can see this yellow that's still down here on my baking sheet, but that's just the residual leftover wax. So it is going to smoke. That is okay. Nothing's catching fire. And that is it, guys. That is how you make the beeswax wraps. So you may have questions about, can I use different oils? Can I use different fabrics? I don't know. I just know that the oil that I did use this with, I did a lot of research on it first, so I didn't have to buy lots of different oils. And out of all the research I did, this was the best consistency. This was the type of oil that was recommended, and it's worked for me. So I really haven't experimented with any other oils. I just went with what has worked in the past. So I hope that you try it, and I hope that it works for you. It's super rewarding, and it's a fun gift to give to others, or something that you could sell yourself at a farmer's market or a craft store. But yeah, I really enjoy doing stuff like this. So I hope you do too. And that is a wrap on the food wraps. I'm going to finish up with what I have left, and see how much I can get out of that mason jar and the fabrics that I've already cut. So I'm going to finish up on these, and who knows, maybe you'll see them for sale at our farmer's market or online. So I will catch you guys later.